Hi, everybody. I hope you're all well and dandy out there in Beatles world and the VC and people of the interweb. I thought today we'd just have a bit of a catch up on some of the records that I've got over the last month. Been a very, very, very busy month for me in record collecting. I think I bought more last month than I've in the previous 6 months. Most of these have been featured on videos, but I've sort of like played them all now, so I can, tell you what they sound like, if it's worth the money, and things like that. So I hope you'll enjoy this little video. It's not going to be that long, so it's getting towards dinner time, and I'm getting a bit hungry. In the UK, I'll just give you a quick weather report. It looks like it's absolutely going to chuck it down any minute now. Yeah, so May, very, very busy month for me, record collecting. I think one of the highlights was this album, which was a yellow and black Parlophone label Indian pressing of Abbey Road. Had quite a few comments on this, to be honest. Some people think it is a 1980s repressing from India, which it could be. Other people said, Dave, that's definitely a 1960s pressing from India. One chap who is very, very, very knowledgeable says, Dave, you've hit the jackpot. That is actually an Indian pressing for export to Hungary, of all places. So the values are anywhere from like £25 up to a couple of £1,000. I still don't know what this is. I definitely think it is a 60s pressing, just by the weight and the feel of the record. I will just quickly show you the label. I don't know if you can see it very well. This has been done on my laptop, of all things, so it might stop at any minute. Right. That's side one. And that is side two. Lovely sounding record. I've played it quite a few times now. It's on par with anything, any pressing from the 1960s. Sounds slightly better than the 70s pressings from the UK. So I still don't know really what this one is. Bear with 1 second. Somebody's starting to text me, so I'll just put my old granddad glasses on, wherever they are. Not on top of my head, are they? So we've got Man of Many Voices. Man of Many Voices, sorry. Is this Beatle Brave? Or Fiddle Dave? Or maybe Beatle Dave? It's Beatle Dave, mate. Beatle Dave. I'm just going through a couple of the finds I've had this month. I've been very, very lucky in what I've found. We've just done the Indian pressing of Abbey Road, which was this one. Whatever it is, I seem to think with Mr. Ellie Records, it could be an export copy pressed in India for Hungary. If it is extremely, extremely rare. If not, worst comes to worst, and it's an 80s repressing, it's I think it's still worth more than what I paid for it. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Fantastic sounding album, which most Abbey Roads are anyway, aren't they, from wherever you get them around the world. Another highlight was this one that I got from the recent record fair that was held in Derby. Small Faces Autumn Stone, double LP, released in 1969 on Immediate Records. And it is actually quite rare. I paid £20 for it, thinking it was worth up to about 50. It's actually worth a lot more than that. Going fast for these is around the 100, £150 mark. This is in really, really nice condition. I have played it. It sounds absolutely fantastic. I've always had a soft spot for the small faces. They get very overlooked in a lot of people's minds when you're talking about 60s music. Steve Marriott was a fantastic guitarist, a brilliant vocalist, and him and Ronnie Lane wrote some absolutely fantastic hits in the 60s. Of course, when he left Small Faces, Steve Marriott went on to do Humble Pie, and the rest of the Small Faces got Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood to replace Steve Marriott. That's how good Steve Marriott was. They had to get two people to replace him. And then they carried on for that as the Faces. And then the Small Faces reformed in the late 70s, but they didn't really have much critical acclaim. Yeah, £20 for an album that could be worth £150 plus. I've got quite a few original Small Faces albums now, and they are actually quite hard to come by now in the UK because at the time a lot of them didn't sell or didn't sell in vast quantities. So, but yeah, very happy to have this. What do the letters on the wall mean? You mean that up there actually lights up and it says "Love Me Do"? Yeah, you can only see a bit of it then. You can only see me do, but it's actually love me do. Yeah. Susie Sue made that for me, by the way. So yeah, so that's that one. Another highlight was this. This is the one I got last week, which was a original mono copy of Revolver. This is a -3 pressing. It's in absolutely pristine condition. It looks like it's never been played. The cover's the best cover I've seen ever on a Revolver, a UK Revolver. It wasn't cheap. It was £60. But when you think of how much these can go for, I don't think actually did that bad on it, to be honest. Like I said, I've been really, really lucky. I've been more lucky than I thought I'd be actually, because the month started off with me having car problems, which never actually got sorted out, to be honest. But I did manage to sell the car that I was having problems with to a chap that was going to break it up basically and use it for parts. So that I did get a little bit of money back, hence why I've been able to buy a few more records than what I'd usually buy, to be honest. Another one we got was David Bowie's Storyteller. I have got this on CD, but today was the first time I actually played it on record. I played it on the system downstairs, which is a Technics system, although it goes through a Project record deck because my Technics deck is now up here. Fantastic. David's on really, really good form on this. He's laughing and joking and telling stories about Mark Bolan and Steve Marriott and things like that. It's a very, very entertaining listen, to be honest. It just makes you realise how much we miss people like David Bowie when you actually listen to him interacting with the audience. Some brilliant songs on it. He does a fantastic version of Can't Help Thinking About Me, which is actually one of the first one, songs he wrote, wasn't it? Good version of Life on Mars is on here. Thursday's Child is fantastic. Survive. Always Crashing the Same Car, which was on low, is also highlighted this album. Yeah, fantastic. I think that was £20 as well. So, what else have we had? We had a picture disc version of Love Me Do. Talking of Love Me Do. That was £5 from BPM Records. An original copy of original 1960s pressing of Love Me Do. That was £60. Spent some money, ain't folks? And the EP of A Hard Day's Night, extracts from the film. That was a tenner. That sounds really good as well. And then we had Beatles for Sale EP, which has got the 4 best songs off the Beatles for Sale album in a lot of ways. It's got No Reply, I'm a Loser, Rock and Roll Music in 8 Days a Week. Fantastic. All in all, Well, I can own, but nobody forced me to go out and buy them, did they? Then there's this one. It says numbered Swedish White Album. The discs are from Sweden, are pressed in Sweden, but the actual cover is German, and it has got a very faint number, which is 803849, I think, but you're not going to be able to see that. It's a side opener. Again, I've had various comments on this. Some people say it's a Swedish export copy to Germany. Other people have said it's a German export copy to Sweden. And the one which I think is probably the most likely is, it is a German album, but they were printed in, the discs were printed or pressed in Sweden to meet demand in the German market. A bit like in 1973 in the UK, a lot of Beatles British albums are actually pressed in France because there was redoing the factory EMI pressing plant or something, and there was an oil crisis, which, all that sort of malarkey. Yeah, that was £20. I've played this today. It actually sounds absolutely wonderful. A really, really nice pressing of it. I thought I'd got some really, really decent sounding White albums. This one stands amongst them. Nice shiny vinyl, no marks on it, no skips, no jumps. Sounds amazing. Again, it was played on my system downstairs, so it's gone through Technic amp and Technic speakers, and it was played on a project record deck with an Often cartridge. Don't really know what I'm telling you. What else did we get? What other highlights did we get? We got a 1971 US pressing of Magical Mystery Tour. And I always think this is funny that in the UK, Magical Mystery Tour was released as a double EP in 1967. And in America and other parts of the world, you got a fully fledged album, which was basically the best of 1967, if you think about it, because it had the songs from this TV film, and then you got like Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, All You Need Is Love, Baby You're a Rich Man, Hello Goodbye. So I think that was a case where Capitol in particular got one over on EMI in the UK. But having said that, I've always had a soft spot for the double EP, because that is the way that the Beatles always intended you to hear it. This is supposed to be stereo. How true that is, I don't know, because some people say it's mock stereo, things like that. But it does sound pretty damn good to me. What's that? Dave, how much of? Oh, hang on. Man of many voices, Dave. How much of your music would you say is Beatle related? When I was around 20, my collection was about 30% Beatles or more. Today, it's more like 3 to 5%. To be honest, mate, maybe you don't mind me calling you, mate. I would say roughly 45 to 50% of my collection is Beatles or Beatles related, as in solo, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Wings and things like that, or Apple related, Badfinger, Billy Preston and things like that. So I'd say about 45% of my collection, maybe a little bit more, is Beatles related, which sounds a lot, but don't forget I've been collecting records on and off since 1976, when I was a wee nipper. And believe it or not, a lot of my collection I've rebuilt over the past 10 years. So I hope that answers your question. I love the Beatles. I love other bands as well, don't get me wrong, but the Beatles has always been my passion since 1980. Bearing in mind at that time I was in Sex Pistols, Specials, Adam and the Ants and things like that. I had sort of like heard of the Beatles, but till John Lennon was murdered, I'd never really got into them, if that makes sense. What you put there, Man of Many Voices. When I turned 17, my aunt and grandparents took me out for my birthday. Then each bought me an LP. My grandmother bought me Magical Mystery Tour, brilliant, and my aunt bought me McCartney. Is that McCartney one then? I started collecting LPs in 1969 when I was 16. Starting around 72 or so, I started winding out and listening to a lot of other music. Yeah, I have got a very, very wide musical taste. I listen to anything from Buddy Holly up to Oasis. Don't particularly like a lot of the sort of like chart music that's found at the moment. Some of it's all right. Guilty pleasures, I quite like listening to things like Shawaddy Waddy. I don't know if you'll know who they were. They're sort of like a rock and roll revival band in the 70s. And just lately, I've been listening to a lot of Boney M, believe it or not. Only like a couple of particular songs like Daddy Cool and Rasputin for some reason. Well, I know the reason for Rasputin because it was featured on an episode of Doctor Who last year. And it's just amazing how they work that into that storyline. But yeah, I've got some 78s of like Buddy Holly, the Everly Brothers and things like that. I like the Rolling Stones. I've got a very, very nice collection of David Bowie LPs as well, which must be getting on for 100 LPs. Madness, Specials, things like that, punk, ska, a little bit of Motown, rock and roll, because my mum and dad were big rock and roll fans. At some point, you really, excuse me, at some point you really got hooked on blues. So now about 20% of my collection is likely blues. Yeah. Is blues in America the same as blues in the UK? Because like Eric Clapton and even the Rolling Stones started out as a rhythm and blues sort of like band. So I can sort of like listen to things like that. If you're on about sort of like southern country blues, like Blind Lemon Pie or things like that, then I can listen to it. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, even the Small Faces started out as a rhythm and blues band and then became a mod band, didn't they? So, it's. I think a lot of like my record collection is sort of like connected in a lot of ways. Um, Led Zeppelin's first album, right? Yeah. Led Zeppelin actually formed out of the remains of the Yardbirds, weren't they? I think, if I've got that right. Um, Jimmy Page was in the Yardbirds at the time when they broke up, and he remained had the rights to the name of the Yardbirds, and originally the Led Zeppelin was going to be the new Yardbirds, or have I just read that somewhere and it's completely wrong? I don't know. No, I mean, it probably is wrong. What else did we get? A nice stereo copy of the early Beatles. This was only £10. USA copy on the Capital Rainbow label. Again, I have got a mono copy of this, but stereo copy for £10, I don't think that was that bad. Other things I've got, what I bought, let's have a look. The specials. No, I don't, man of many voices, don't know if you know the specials. So yeah, so that thing about the Yardbirds, and yeah, I thought it might be right. Yes, I've read that somewhere as well. I didn't know it was Keith Meehan that said it though. That the new Yardbirds said the new Yardbirds band would go over like a lead balloon or a Led Zeppelin. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, this is a special a specials LP. More specials, which was a special second LP. Although this is a Canadian one, and it's got a slightly different cover because on the UK versions there's a woman here on the sleeve, and for some reason she's been cut off this. The contents are the same. Brilliant sounding album. If you haven't got this, I'd highly recommend this to anybody. Looks like you date you. Let me put that down. what does that say? You like the specials, but you don't yet have any of their music. The specials were very, very big in the UK around 1979, 1980. Their music, although it was ska, could be classed as being political in some cases. They had a couple of songs banned on the BBC at the time. Fantastic live band. Terry Hall was a brilliant vocalist and a very, very gifted songwriter in his own right. I've got some of the original ones. My neighbour actually gave me some specials LPs a few weeks ago, so I've cleaned them up and played them. I've also been buying a few of the like reissues, except on the Cancer Peak. Yeah, because Paul McCartney and Wings was on that, the Pretenders was on it, and all different sort. Was the Clash on that as well, wasn't there? I think. Actually, that is one album that I haven't got. I will have to keep an eye out for that because that was like a forerunner to sort of like Band Aid or Live Aid, wasn't it? Talking of the specials, this is one you should get. This is the specials in the studio. This is the album that they made after Terry Hall and the other two had left to form Fun Boy 3. It's still on the two-tone label, and it is quite a nice album. If you like blues and jazz and things like that, some of this sounds a bit blues in places and a bit jazz in places. It's took me a few listens to actually get into this album. Now I would class it as a classic specials album. Fits very well with the other two, although it's a different singer. And Jerry Dammers is quite funny on this in places, especially when he sings the lead vocals on Girlfriend, or as it was entitled in some territories as the best thing I like about you is your girlfriend. Yeah, brilliant album, although it's took me quite a few listens to get into it. What you saying there? Yeah, the Clash, although everybody always thinks they were a punk band, bear in mind they did start out as a punk band, although Joe Strummer had been in pub rock bands, hadn't he? So, yeah, they were one of those bands that could turn and do sort of like various sort of like musical styles, couldn't they? A bit like the Beatles in a lot of ways. You got no record stores where you live. See, I'm lucky. We've got a nice second-hand record store in Derby, and we've got like a big HMV type place as well. Nottingham's not that far from me, and there's quite a few record stores there. We get record fairs come round here quite regular. So it's a shame when you live somewhere and you haven't got a record shop, isn't it? But you know, God, the closest one's you at 80 to 90 miles away. Do what I do then sometimes. Go on the internet. These specials albums, this one, I know you can get on eBay, either brand new or second hand. That's usually around the £20 mark. This one, if you wanted an original UK copy for the first specials album or the second specials album, you can get them, but they are getting quite expensive. Same with Madness. If you want original pressings, they are getting expensive. If you don't mind having the issues, then you can usually pick them up between the £10 to £20 mark. It's a shame that though, isn't it? When but I suppose it depends where you live. I mean, I suppose I'm lucky where I live that I've got record shops and things that are within sort of decent distance away from me. Most of my records I get online or sometimes my local flea market. Yeah, flea markets and antique stores. There's quite a few antique stores in our area. They're good for getting records. Are just like outdoor vendors who mostly sell only junk, but there is a used record dealer there. Yeah, I've noticed that. a few places I've been to, and they'll have, I don't know, like say Paul McCartney London Town, and it might be a battered up copy, but because it's got McCartney on it, they seem to think they can get like 10, 15, £20 for it. Where usually the go mate in the UK is around £5 to £10 for that album. And that is for a really, really nice copy, by the way. Yeah, it is a shame that you haven't got a local record shop. This is what I was trying to say on one of my videos I did, was it last week or might have been this week, where, you know, I'm guilty of it myself. I don't go to my local record shop as much as I should do. But they don't always have what I'm looking for, if that makes sense. Although they've got a brilliant selection, and Dave at BPM and Anthony, you know, they will always do the best to try and find you something if you go in that shop. There's no pressure on you to buy anything, you know. But when I was a kid, I mean, I came from a little town, which was basically, it wasn't really a town, it was more like a village. It used to have a good market on it, so there would always be a record stall on the market. And I think we had 3 or 4 record shops, and then we had a Woolworths that sold records and a co-op that sold records. But you know, yeah, I'm going back to like the early 70s. You know, that was the main media, wasn't it? In them days was records. Uh, you've had, you're way out in the country, smack down between Nashville and no real cities near me. How far away are you from Nashville then? Because in the, I should imagine there's record stores and stuff there, aren't they? You know, with the history of Nashville. 90 miles from Nashville. I plan on going there this weekend, maybe. Oh, well, if you do, let us know what you got. You know, um, it's always nice to find out what other people, you know, collect, or, you know, their finds and things like that. This was talking of things that um, you don't really think you'd buy or see. I got this from a record fair, uh, local to me the other week. Um, the Hollis Greatest Volume 2, right, for £2. £2 for Hollis LP. Um, the Hollies are sort of like the unsung heroes of the British 60s music scene in a lot of ways, because they were very, very quickly singled out as a singles band, i.e., they only did decent singles, although they did make some fantastic albums, especially when Graham Nash was still with them. You know, who went on to do Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and things like that. But yeah, they did some fantastic albums in their own right. The place in Nashville has books, movies, and records and CDs, a bit of everything. Yeah, that's what you want, isn't it? A bit of everything. I collect books, collect CD. You know, I've started to get back into CDs after many, many years. Hence why I bought a CD player a few months ago. In fact, I've just done a video earlier today about some CDs I found at our local supermarket of all places. They even have. Oh, sounds like a good place. That does actually. Man of many voices. So you've got the shop you're on about. They sell books, movies, and records and CDs. They also sell musical instruments and video gaming. One of the biggest mistakes I have in my life, although there's many, um, but one of the biggest mistakes, or one of the biggest regrets I have, is never learning how to play a musical instrument. Um, when I was about 13, I think, I pestered my mum and dad to buy me an electric guitar. And they did, they bought me one. I mean, it wasn't a very expensive one. I mean, it was brand new, but it was only like a cheap copy of a Les Paul or something like that, and a little amp. So I'd mess about in my bedroom, strumming it and things like that. And then one day, my mum and dad says, "Well, we'll get you guitar lessons." And I did stick at them for a few weeks, but the bloke that came to give me the guitar lessons, he gave me the creeps. Um, and I'm being a little bit serious when I say this. He was a bit like he never did anything, but you kept expecting him to like touch you or something like that. And he got like a wandering eye. I don't mean he'd like that. I mean, 1 hour was like that, 1 hour was like that. So you didn't actually really know if he was looking at you or not. So I lost interest. I really did lose interest. Plus, I joined a punk band, and they wanted me to be the singer. So the guitar went by the wayside, and eventually, I think it broke in the end. I think me and my mates were pissing about, and was having like a play fight, and we fell into it, and it snapped the neck. Um, but yeah, that is like the biggest regret, that I cannot play a musical instrument. I can sing okay, or well, I think I can. But I would have loved to be able to stick it, learning to play the guitar. I'm too old now. I'm heading on for 60 now, so um, recording lessons, but I couldn't. But I could. So you are what you call a multi instrumentalist now, then? Um, yeah, I know it probably isn't too late, but in my head, I've got it. It is too late, if you know what I mean. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things I wish I'd done different to what I did, but then I wouldn't be in the position I am now. But that is a regret, not learning to play guitar. I did try a few years ago when I first got with Susie Sue. I bought like an old acoustic guitar, and I did try, but because I've only got like little stubby fingers, I couldn't get the chords right. Um, but perhaps one day. Mr. Steve, greetings from Wrexham, Beatle Dave. Do you collect pre-recorded cassettes at all? I have a mid-80s Beatles blue box cassette collection. I haven't bought any cassettes for a while, but having said that, excuse my big fat stomach. The other week I did buy this Lennon Legend on cassette. Um, and the nice thing about this is you can get this on cassette. You could get it on CD, and it was very, very limited edition on vinyl, which is now extremely expensive. But I haven't got a cassette back up here anymore, but I have got one downstairs. So occasionally we do still play cassettes because Sue still got some cassettes. Um, so yeah, I do sort of collect them, and I have seen the blue box. It's the album. Is it the albums you're on about? The Beatles albums one. Um, so yes and no. It's something I'm starting slowly to get back into because I've got for this Denon amp and everything. I've actually got a cassette deck for that, but because I never used it, I never bothered putting it up. I think it's in the other room somewhere. Maybe I should connect that up. Hey, man of many voices. There are some folks who never picked up an instrument or paintbrush until they're quite old. Yeah, I mean, my stepdad, man of many voices, is very musical. Um, he's managed bands and all sorts through his years. Although he's Irish, he used to live in London, and at one time, very briefly, he was a manager of Bad Manners. I don't know if you ever heard of them. And he also managed a band who are now fairly famous called Guitar Gangsters. I've got a couple of their albums. You'd like them. They're very sort of like punky ska, a bit like a very, very lot like the Clash. Right. Dave, thanks for the chat. If I do get to Nashville, I'll let you know what I'll pick up. Yeah, okay, man of many voices. It's been nice talking to you. And yeah, I hope you find some bargains. Yeah, I really do. I hope that you find some bargains, mate. It's been nice talking to you, and you've made me realise how lucky I am with the record shops and stuff. Not necessarily on my doorstep, but they're not as far away as some of the ones that you are. Yeah, See you later, mate. Thank you for joining in with us. Right, we'll carry on with a few of these records then. This was quite a nice one. The Beatles 20 Golden Hits. This is a French pressing, and I don't actually think that I showed anybody the labels on these. So this is all raised. And it's on a very, very light blue. Odeon label, which is quite weird. It's quite a weird one. Very, very nice sounding record, actually. The running order is a bit weird on it. There's like a couple of them that you think are out of place. Bear in mind, you've got something, you've got Help followed by Something, followed by We Can Work It Out, followed by Michelle, and then Hey Jude. And then you've got Obla Di Bladar, followed by Yesterday. Lady Madonna, followed by Paperback Writer. So I think it's done because of the time on each side. But that was actually quite a nice surprise to get, and that was only £8. Yeah, if you're still there, Mr. Steve, once I've done this, I might have a look at that Eater's Blue Box cassette collection, because I know somebody was selling that on eBay. They've got that, and then they've got the cassette singles box set as well, I think. Yeah, so that is a nice one. If you haven't got this one, I'd recommend that one if you can find it. This is actually slightly harder to get than the German one. Couple more, then I'm going to call it a day. What else did we get that's of interest? Yeah, I bet it sounds really nice, doesn't it? Another weird and wonderful record I got was The Crazy World of Arthur Penn. This was their, I don't know if it was their debut album, but it's simply called The Crazy World of Arthur Penn. And it's on, excuse me, it's on Track Records, which obviously is the same label that The Who and Jimi Hendrix was on at the time. And it was produced by Kit Lambert, who originally produced a lot of the Who's songs and albums. And the associate producer on this is Pete Townsend. I'll share the labels because the labels on this is actually quite nice. So Track Records, ST33 613005 1968. Yeah, I think it was their debut, and yeah, it is a nice album to have. To be honest, I've only played it a couple of times. The first time I played it, I basically just played Fire, which obviously was their big hit, and a couple of other songs. And it is a very sort of like hippie, trippy sort of album, isn't it? It's one of those that you could imagine if you was around in the 60s when this came out, you'd have probably sat in your bedroom with your headphones on listening to this and maybe smoking something that you shouldn't be smoking. You know, that is just frozen up out. It's still going. But yeah, I've listened to it again now, and it's a grower, isn't it? You know, this is one of them albums where every time you listen to it, you'll probably hear something slightly different. I think he's still going, isn't he, Arthur Mann? Because he used to go around with like a fire on his head, didn't he? I think he burnt himself once, didn't he? He used to say, that's it, an ashtray. Yeah. 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 Yeah, but it is a nice album, and these are actually quite rare. I paid all of £10 for it, to be honest, and you know, I think I know it's worth a bit more than that. You know, I think he was still touring, wasn't it, up till a few years ago. But again, he's always classed as a one-hit wonder, isn't he? Which, in fairness, I suppose he was. The other chap that was a bit like him was a bloke called Keith West, who did a song called Extract from a Teenage Opera. Grocer Jack, get off your back, get into town, don't let us down. And that was supposed to be the song for like a concept album that never came out, did it? Yeah. Yeah, but for £10, I think that was absolutely amazing. Most did we get? One of the other highlights, Keith West was actually producer. Yes, he was, and wasn't he in a band called Tomorrow as well? Before he did that solo song, I'm sure he was in a band called Tomorrow. Sure it was Tomorrow. You got me thinking now. Yeah, I'm sure it was Tomorrow. He was in a band called Tomorrow, and of course that extract from a teenage opera was released on Parlophone in the UK. One of the bargains from the recent Derby Record Fair was this: £4. Collection of Beatles oldies, book holders. Yes, it's not the rarest album in the world, but this one is virtually mint condition. The actual vinyl looks like it has never ever been played. What's that one? But I think he helped. Yeah, you might be right on that. You think Keith West has something to do with opening the Olympic Studios? You might be right. You might be right on that one. And of course, the thing there is that some of the Beatles songs was actually done in the Olympic, and a lot of the Rolling Stones songs were recorded at Olympic as well, weren't they? And Trident, So yeah, yeah. I love that extract from a teenage opera. Yes, and Small Faces. Yeah, look, yeah, a lot of their stuff was done at Olympic, wasn't it? When they moved to Immediate Records, wasn't it? Small Faces, what a band! How many bands does the lead singer leave and they have to get two people to replace him because he was such a good singer and such a good guitarist? I did get. I don't know if you saw that. I did get a copy of Autumn Stone original UK pressing. Which is this one, which is sort of like a greatest hits, but then it's got some live tracks on it, and then it got some tracks that were unreleased at the time this album came out. Released in 1969, I think just after Steve Marriott had left or just before he left. And this is quite rare. UK original first pressing. I paid £20 for it, and I thought, worth about 50. I can't find one for under £150 for original UK pressing. Remember, it is a double album on a pink Immediate label. There's one on eBay, and they want something like £330 for this. Good album, though. If you ever see it, whether it's an original or a reissue, I would highly recommend it. Yeah, because some of the songs that was meant to be on that fourth album are on here, aren't they? It's all like muddled up. It's like you get a couple of hits and then a couple of B-sides, and then you got some live tracks, and then there's like some other tracks, but still mixed in with like the hits and everything. So yeah, it is a good album though. Very very nice to listen to, and the sound quality on it, for saying when it came out, is absolutely amazing. And I was surprised how much they go for. I really was surprised how much they go for. Just excuse me one sec. Yeah, I think they are instrumentals. Because there was another one that came out, wasn't there? What's that called? What that one's called now? It's gone. Yeah, Small Faces. Very, very, very brilliant band. If you like the Small Faces, by the way, there is a band called Small Fakers. I think called the Small Fakers. I've never seen them live, but I've seen clips of them on YouTube. So if they ever play near where you live, I'd recommend you go and see them, because judging by the videos that they make, they are, you know, very, very talented musicians. Yeah, check them out. Like I say, the Small Faces had a bit of a strange history, didn't they? You know, they were ripped off a couple of times, weren't they, by certain managers. Then when Steve Marriott left to form Humble Pie, obviously the Small Faces had to get Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood to replace him. They had to get two people to replace him. That's how good he was. And then, of course, they went on to have fame as the Faces in their own right. And then, you know, the Small Faces did reform, didn't they, briefly in the late 70s, but they didn't really have much sort of like critical success, did they? Hey, Beatletown, how are you, mate? Yeah, you've missed about 40 odd minutes worth so far. I'm just wrapping up, to be honest. Yeah, I've missed something, but another way, if you've seen a lot of my videos from the last month, you probably haven't, because we was like just going through some of the videos that some of the records I got. So I'm getting tired now, mate. It's my age. But yeah, yes, Jimmy McCulloch from Wings. Yeah, yes, they did. But I'm gonna have to actually finish it now, because my laptop is going to run out of power. Believe it or not, I'm very, very sorry. So thank you to everybody that has joined me on this sort of like very last minute live stream. I hope you all gonna have a wonderful weekend. Beatle Dave loves you all. Thank you to everybody that has participated. I'm gonna have to go because my laptop is gonna die. So thank you, everybody, and bye bye for now.